أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآله الحمد لله رب العالمين. All praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that once more we have the opportunity to do the presentation of Quran Tafsir sessions in the holy month of Ramadan. This is 1441H. We are talking from Jaffari Community Center in Toronto. This year we have been assigned 5 sessions, first 5 nights, and we'll be discussing about the Tafsir of Surah Nuh, which is Surah number 71 of the Quran. Before we do that, as usual, because it is the month of Ramadan, and we would like to, in fact, discuss about something about Ramadan. So let me begin with that ayat of Quran and also a passage from the khutbah of the Prophet, which is always invoked in the beginning of Ramadan. Surah Al-Baqarah, ayat number 183, Allah says, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, kutiba alaykum as-siyam, kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed for you, as it was prescribed for those before you, so that you may guard against evil, so that you may learn self-restraint, so that you may become God conscious. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. You'll find that this لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ has been translated by different translators slightly differently. And that's a good thing, because that way, if you don't know Arabic, then you try to understand what a person is trying to say and perhaps understand the message of Quran, right? So this is the ayat which has been invoked every year by every scholar in the month of Ramadan, right? Because it talks about fasting being prescribed for us, for the believers. But not only that, it also says, why fasting? What is the outcome of fasting? Allah says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So perhaps so that maybe you may guard against evil and learn self-restraint, right? And then there is the khutbah, the sermon of Rasulullah, which he gave in the last week of Shaban, last Friday of Shaban, and that is why it is known as Khutbah al-Sha'baniyah, wherein he welcomed the month of Ramadan. And after discussing about all the merits of Ramadan and what we need to do and what we are supposed to do, Imam Amir Mu'mineen al-Islam, he was present when Prophet was giving this khutbah. So after the khutbah, he stood up. He said, Kala Amir Mu'mineen fakumtu. He said, after that khutbah, I just stood up. Fakultu ya Rasulullah. I said, O Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ما أفضل الأعمال في هذا الشهر. O Rasulullah, what is the best of the deeds in this month of Ramadan, في هذا الشهر? فقال, so Prophet responded to Ali's question. Ya Abu Hassan, O Abu Hassan, this is the kunya of Imam Ali. Ya Abu Hassan, أفضل الأعمال في هذا الشهر الورع عن محارم الله عز وجل. The best of the deeds in this month of Ramadan is to avoid all the forbidden things which Allah has forbidden, all things which have been forbidden by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Azza wa Jalla, right? Mighty and magnificent. So you can see that of all the deeds, we are going to pray, we are going to fast, we are going to recite dua, we are going to give charity, we are going to do munajat, we are going to recite, do amal of Shab Qadr, and we are going to keep awake. And so many good things we are going to perform. But Prophet says, أفضل الأعمال في هذا الشهر الورع عن محارم الله عز وجل. The best of the deeds in this month is to avoid from all things forbidden by Allah, mighty and the magnificent. So now you can see that this is interesting, right? We'll see what is the connection between taqwa and fasting. But let's quickly look at how we can be trapped into committing sins inadvertently, not knowingly, because maybe you can say we are going through just now pandemic and we are homebound. So this year we'll not be gathering in the masajid, in the Imam Barga, in the Islamic centers. We are going to spend our time at home during the Ramadan. Then there is no problem of getting into sin, because maybe when, for example, weather improves, when we go out, we see that people are not dressed well, they're half naked. So maybe sometimes our eyes get distracted. But now I'll be at home. I'll be staying with my wife, with my spouse, with my children, maybe my grandchildren. So where is the time to do guna? Yes, you never know. Sometimes we commit sins not knowingly. Telephone call, somebody called you, your friend, your family members. You start talking, and then suddenly we start talking about people. In the process, we are doing ghibat, backbiting. That is haram. Avoid that thing. The moment somebody starts talking to somebody, please, let's change the talk. Let's not talk about somebody. Television programs. There are certain programs which are definitely wrong. We should avoid those things. And I'm sure that we as believers fasting month Ramadan, we would not do that. But sometimes we are flipping the channel, right? We're flipping the channel and you say curiosity, right? You feel like, let me see what is this. And you want to see what is this channel says. And in the process, something has attracted you. So you look more and more. And in the process, 5, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, we are already, enjoying or, just taking pleasure, having gratification on something which is haram, right? Try to avoid that. WhatsApp messages and clips which you receive. Make sure that if you receive some clips, video clips or messages, if it is from somebody reliable, then open it. It's from somebody, for example, just in a group and anybody can post, be careful. Very quickly, for example, if you feel it's not very useful, just delete it. Forwarding the hadith or Islamic messages or Quranic ayat from WhatsApp. Don't do that. Provided you have received from somebody who's reliable and he or she has put the reference that where does this hadith come from which book, only then forward it. Because sometimes we may be forwarding a hadith which says this is what the Qala Rasulullah, this is what the Prophet said, Qala Imam Sadiq, this is what Imam Sadiq has said. And that was not the case. And I forwarded it and then it went all over the world, right? I'm responsible for forwarding something which is wrong, which is in fact not appropriate. And what happens in the month of Ramadan, I've done something which is wrong, right? Or fake news. So be careful in forwarding. I have a policy in the month of Ramadan. I listen to clips or messages. If I find good, fine, alhamdulillah. And then if I feel it's worth keeping, I keep it, I delete it. No forwarding at all. I'm sure somebody will receive it. It doesn't matter, no. If I don't forward, I'm not sure, I don't think that, the roof is going to cave in, right? So don't do that, Talking about people instead of events. When at home, you are talking with your spouse, with your children, with your grandchildren, your brothers, sisters are living. Let's stop talking about people. Great minds talk about events, we are told, right? So do this thing. So now, as I said, what is the connection between fasting and taqwa? Very simple. In fasting, what do? We keep away from drinking and water. Now, taking water and food, drinking and food, right? We keep away from eating and drinking from food and water. Now, you know that, right? Food and water, these are basic necessities. Something which is jais in other times. But at the time of fasting, you're not allowed to do that. From dawn to dusk, we don't do that, right? So if that is the case, if we can stay away from basic things, from the essential things, from the necessities of life, in obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then talking about people, doing ghibat, looking at programs which are doubtful, or forwarding messages which we are not sure of, these are not necessities, right? We can easily stay away from those things. So when we can stay away from necessities in obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can surely stay away from haram things. So if we keep away from these things, then our fasting is complete, right? We are obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not only in the matters of drinking and eating, but in all the aspects. So it is very important that in this month of Ramadan, we should not be trapped into committing sins, not only the brothers and sisters, on account of what we are going to be homebound. I feel, it is my strong belief, and I've been praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that, oh Allah, grant me tawfiq to make this as the best of Ramadan I have ever had in my life. Because I'll be homebound and I can spend time in ibadat and reading and increasing my knowledge and know all those good things, inshallah. We go to the next slide. As we said that we are going to, inshallah, this Ramadan, in the 5 days allotted to us by the Jamaat, we'll discuss Surah Nuh, which is Surah number 71 of the Quran. We'll discuss about Surah tomorrow, Sunday after tomorrow, about the Surah. There are first 4 verses. Now what we'll do, I forgot to tell you that as we said, there are 5 verses, how we are going to divide. Here is you can see these are the 5 sessions. The first session will be ayat number 1 to 4. Second session will be ayat number 5 to 9. Third session will be ayat number 10 to 12. Fourth session will be ayat 13 to 20. And the last session will be ayat 21 to 28, right? So look at these 4 verses. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أرسلنا نوحا إلى قومه أن أنذر قومك من قبل أن يأتيهم عذاب أليم قال يا قوم إني لكم نذير مبين أن اعبدوا الله واتقوه وأطيعون يغفر لكم من ذنوبكم ويؤخركم إلى أجل مسمى إن أجل الله إذا جاء لا يؤخر لو كنتم تعلمون. Right? So you can see that these are the 4 verses of the Quran, and the translation is there. Right? We'll look at them in detail. Right? So let's look at that. The first verse. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أرسلنا نوحا إلى قومه أن أنذر قومك من قبل أن يأتيهم عذاب أليم. Now you can see that, right? Bismillah is there. Bismillah is part and parcel of all the surahs except surah number 9. In our mazhab, mazhab Jaffari, Shia mazhab, if you recite any surah of the Quran in namaz, we must say Bismillah. If we leave out Bismillah, then it is an incomplete surah. But in the numbering, the only first Bismillah in Surah Al-Fatiha is numbered as first ayat. In all of the surahs, Bismillah is there, but it's not numbered as number 1. So keep that in mind. So for example, Surah An-Nur has 71 verses. In actual fact, there are 72 verses if you take Bismillah also. But we start numbering after Bismillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, right? We say, Inna arsalna Nuhan ila qawmi. Allah said, indeed, we have sent Nuh to his people. So you can see Allah chooses a person amongst the same people. So when a person comes and just starts preaching and talking about, Allah and the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people know already, right? Like for example, Nabi Rasulullah, right? He was amongst the people of Quraysh for 40 years before he started preaching Islam. So in 40 years, already people knew that he was Al-Amin, As-Sadiq, he was trustworthy, he was truthful. So when he started preaching, people knew that, no, this person is somebody who can be trusted upon. So you can see, Inna arsala Nuhan ila qawmi. We sent Nuh to his own people. So they knew already that this was somebody who is known to us, who's trustworthy, who has a reputation, right? Anzir qawmaka, saying to them, instructing to Nabi Nuh what? Anzir qawmaka, go and warn your people. Min qabli an ya'tiyahum adhabun alim. Before a time comes, they will get severe punishment, a painful chastisement. Now, this is a fundamental principle you can see. Keep in mind that no community, no nation, no village, no country, no city, no locality will be punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except that they are warned before that. Either the Prophet or his awsiya, or in present day, for example, ulama or mujtahideen, they will warn us. So Allah says, min qabli an ya'tiyahum adhabun alim. Because of their behaviors and wickedness, all they are doing, you go and warn them, And after warning them, if they don't listen to you, then the azab will come. So this is a fundamental principle, that Allah, who is kind and merciful, has not only given us our rationality, intelligence to see what is right and wrong, and all the means to judge, for example, what is right and wrong, but he also, and besides that, he has given, for example, book, right? But he has also sent warners, right? So warn your people before they come upon them. Before the final punishment, Prophet Nuh warned them against the consequences of their ungodliness, their actions of being ungodliness and evil. Had they availed their spite given to them, if they had just availed their spite given to them and repented and reformed themselves, they would still have obtained mercy of Allah. So you can see the mercy of Allah is there. And that is why after the dua of Maghrib and after the dua of Zuhur, we recite dua recommended, which many of us know by heart. In these two duas, in dua after Zuhur prayers and dua after Maghrib prayers, there's a beautiful sentence which says, Allahumma inni as'aluka mujibati rahmatik. Oh Allah, I seek from you the cause of your mercy, right? So the mercy of Allah is there. They would have obtained the mercy of Allah only if they had what? Taken the warning against the consequences of their actions. Nuh had warned them. And not only for 1 year or 2 years. As you will see, inshallah, this surah is beautiful. It talks about tabligh. It talks about preaching, right? How he preached. And this is something very important because we who are living in the Western world, example, in Canada, in US, in Britain, right? If you are living in the Western world, and then you find so many people who are non-Muslims, it is important that we at least convey to them. Let Islam be relayed to them. Let Islam be conveyed to them in any way, right? So if they had just, and Nuh shows how he does this thing. You'll see in this surah, inshallah, how Nuh conveyed, right? If they had final punishment before Nuh warned them against consequence of the, had they availed the respite given to them, had availed the time given to them and listened to the warnings, they and repented and reformed themselves, they would have been still remain under the mercy of Allah and would not have been punished. No, they would not have got drowned. No, that would not. They all get drowned on account of the flood which came. Right. We go to the next verse. See what the verse says. Now Nuh has been sent. Allah says, "Oh Nuh," Allah says, "I'll send Nuh to his people to go and warn them." Right. Now Nuh says. Now Nuh is talking. Kala, Ya Qawmi. Do you see the beauty? Initially, Allah said, we have saved Nuh. Immediate next verse now, what did Nuh do after being appointed? Qala, Nuh said, Ya Qawmi inni lakum nadhirun mubin. O my community, I am to you a plain warner, right? A plain warner, nadhirun mubin. It's interesting. So first of all, Ya Qawmi, O my people. What does that tell you? That first of all, you are my people. You are my community. I belong to you and you belong to my community. So I have your welfare. It is my concern. Your welfare is my concern. And then, Ya Qawmi, I am one of you. You already know me. I have grown amongst you. You've seen me since my birth. If you have not seen me, your grandfather, your forefathers have seen me. I have grown up in your community, right? So you know who I am. I've never, for example, been dishonest. I've been always, an honest person lived amongst you. I've just come to warn you, and that also, Nadhirun Mubin, a warner which is plain. The word Mubin comes in Quran a number of times. In Surah Yasin, it comes 7 times. In Surah Yasin, it comes 7 times. We can see that Mubin. That means the prophets, they come and they bring a message which is very simple. Every person, even a lay person, will understand. Just today, for example, if you go to seminaries, Hausa, or universities, they'll teach you courses on Islamic philosophy and on creed and theology and all those things. That is right, because there are people who are asking complicated questions, so there should be also answers to them. There should be those answers, right? But keep in mind that, in fact, Islam is a simple message, and the prophets came with that very clear, simple warning, right? Nazirun Mubin. I'm a plain, make things clear to you and to warn against divine wrath, right? Divine anger, and the punishment which is certainly going to come. So Nabi Nuh told them that, see, you better listen to me what I'm telling you. If you don't do that, then keep in mind that Allah will get angry. And the time would come that Allah is going to send his punishment. And when that punishment comes, no one will be saved. Nobody will be saved. So better be warned. And he gave those simple warnings. You'll see the next ayat telling us what were those warnings, those simple things, right? So next ayat is telling us. And this is it. One of the things you should know about the Quran, the beauty of the Quran is that Quran explains itself. You see, earlier, first of all, we are told, Allah says, we sent Nuh to his people to go and warn them, right? Before the punishment comes. The second ayat says, Nuh says, here I am, I've come to you. I'm a plain warner, right? Now, what did he say? You can see. The next ayat talks about, Ani abudullaha wattaquhu wa ati'uni, right? He says, the first thing is worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you see? No prophet has come to just, blow his own trumpet. No, not at all. Prophets were not interested. They did not come say, oh, I have a superior over you, you obey me. No, nothing of this thing. If you obey me, it's because of Allah. This is first thing is, I've just come so that you worship Allah, because Allah is your and mine creator. He deserves to be worshipped. He is your and mine provider. We need to do his ibadat, right? And abudullah, worship Allah, all of you. Subhanallah, you can see that is the first command. Even in the Quran, if you look at the Quran, the first surah is Surah Al-Fatiha, right? Whereby we say, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. To you alone, we worship, and from you alone we seek help. And then you'll find the next Surah Al-Baqarah, the first command is in ayat number 21. Ya ayyuhan nas u'budu rabbakum. O people, worship your Lord, right? So ibadat is the first command. And brothers and sisters, this is the month of Ramadan. This is a special month of Ramadan wherein we are homebound. We are in isolation, right? Because of pandemic. So let us make the most in our ibadat. Try to do the best. An'budullah. Wattaquhu. And in fact, be careful of your duty. Practice taqwa. Remember earlier also we said, no, Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, kutiba alaykum siyam, kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum, la'allakum tattaqun. No, all those who believe, fasting has been prescribed on you the way it was prescribed for those before you, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may practice taqwa. So you can see, Ani Abudullah, who says, you worship Allah, and وَاتَّقُوهُ, and fear Him, be careful of your duty towards Him. وَاتَّقُوهُ وَأَطِيعُونِي, and then obey me. Not obey me because He has any spirit. No, obey Prophet no, only because he knows what Allah wants from us. This is the only reason. We obey the Prophet because the prophets, as Prophet said, no, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli, right? For example, Quran does not tell us all the details of how to say the prayers. Quran says say the prayers. Quran tells, for example, that no, you have to pray 3 times at this time, right? All those things, those indications are there, but it doesn't give the detail as we pray today. So how do we know that, for example, we start with the Takbiratul Ihram, and then Qiraat, and then Ruku, and Qiyam, and Sajda, and Qu'ud, and Sajda, all those, how do we know that? This is how the Prophet prayed, right? Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. Say prayers the way you see me praying, right? So in the same way, he says about ati'un. Besides worshiping Allah and being careful about your duty, how do you lead your life? You want to see that? Just obey me. Just imitate me. Look at me what I'm doing. Because those things, those small details, the prophets are being taught. The angels come to them, or the inspiration, wahi come to them, or ilham come to them, and they know exactly what to be done, right? So you can see, do Allah's ibadat, because worship and serve Him only. And that ibadat is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Keep in mind, especially in Ramadan, as we say prayers, our prayers and our ibadat is only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or one fasting. When you start your fasting, Ya Allah, in your obedience, I'm going to stay away from all those things which are haram, from dawn to dusk. It's your obedience, your instruction. Practice taqwa. Be careful about your duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Know that He is watchful over you and fully aware what you are thinking and doing, right? He's fully aware. In morning, for example, after Fajr prayers, what did we do? We recited dua, right? Beautiful dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Bismillah wa billahi. Wa fi sabilillah. Bismillah billah. ورسول وفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بعد وفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بعد. I hand over all my affairs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? إن الله بصير بالعباد, because Allah is watchful over His servants. So what we are doing, He is watchful. Not only that, He knows what we are thinking, what we are planning, what we are doing. Because of that, let us practice taqwa. Let us be careful about duty towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let us be God conscious, right? And then he says, Ati'un, obey me, for I am God's prophet to you, right? I'll show you what to do and what not to do. How to attract Allah's mercy and how to avoid Allah's anger and punishment. Do you see this thing? If you do that, and that is most important, what we do today is we are following the Prophet and his progeny, Ahlul Bayt, who are Awsiyah of Prophet, right, Imams, and then of course the scholars and Maraji, they tell us. So we continue, right? That's the practice. And then the ayat before will end after this says, يَغْفِرْ لَكُم مِّن ذُنُوبِكُمْ وَيُؤَخِّرُكُمْ إِلَى أَجَلٍ مُّسَمًّى إِنَّ أَجَلَ اللَّهِ إِذَا جَاءَ لَا يُؤَخَّرُ لَوْ كُنتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. Subhanallah. What happens? Nabi Lu says that if you do those 3 things, if you do worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, and if you practice taqwa, and if you obey the Prophet, Allah is going to forgive you, because before that you may be doing something wrong, you didn't know, right? يَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبُكُمْ. And see, Do you see the tense? يغفر لكم لكم. That means it's an ongoing, it's a present tense. We say in Arabic فعل المضارع. It's an ongoing practice of Allah forgiving them. No? We do good things, Allah is forgiving. يغفر لكم ذنوبكم ويؤخركم إلى أجل مسمى. And then Allah is going to, delay you, till an appointed term and grant you a delay at appointed. That means because you have done all those things wrong, but now that He has forgiven you, He'll give you life and won't bring punishment until a certain time, right? He's going to grant you delay until appointed time. That means until your time comes, you're going to live. In ajallahi idha jaa la yuakhar. When the time comes, Allah does not, when the term comes of Allah, it does not get postponed at all. Not at all, right? لو كنتم تعلمون, only if you were to know, right? When convincing arguments and warnings are given, some people who have intellect, whose intellect is alive to reason and whose conscience is not entirely corrupted beyond recovery, receive the guidance. They repent and they amend their lives and turn to Allah and obtain the fruits of repentance, right? There are people who do this thing. But on the other hand, there are those who obstinately reject guidance and sink deep into the abyss of evil, right? Disconnecting all links with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are people who get punished, right? So keep in mind, this is a beautiful surah. We shall look at it. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that may Allah give us tawfiq, that we are able to read this surah and we are able to read the Quran, Holy Quran in the month of Ramadan. We are able to also read the translation and reflect on that. And most important, Ya Allah, give us tawfiq that we are able to read the Quran, understand the Quran, reflect on the Quran, and then follow the command of the Quran as it was practiced by the Prophet and his Ahlul Bayt. وصلى على محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear sisters and brothers in Toronto, in Jaffari Center. Of course, this year it might not be possible for me to be at your service physically, but my heart, my voice would be with you, inshallah, during the month of Ramadan. I'm going to recite some verses of the Holy Quran, and inshallah, may Allah accept from all of us. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. أياما معدودات، فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر. وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين. فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان، فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه، ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر، يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون. وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداع إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Dua to welcome the month of Ramadan from Sahifa Sajadiyah, Dua number 44. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لحمده وجعلنا من أهله لنكون لإحسانه من الشاكرين وليجزينا على ذلك جزاء المحسنين. والحمد لله الذي حبانا بدينه واختصمنا بملته وسبلنا في سبل إحسانه لنسلكها بمنه إلى رضوانه حمدا يتقبله منا ويرضى به عنا. والحمد لله الذي جعل من تلك السبل شهرا، شهر رمضان، شهر الصيام، وشهر الإسلام، وشهر الطهور، وشهر التمحيص، وشهر القيام الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان، فأبان فضيلته على سائر الشهور بما جعل له من الحرمات الموفورة والفضائل المشهورة، فحرم فيه ما أحل في غيره إعظاما، وحجر فيه المطاعم والمشارب إكراما، وجعل له وقتا بينا لا يجيز جل وعز أن يقدم قبله، ولا يقبل أن يؤخر عنا. ثم فضل ليلة واحدة من لياليه على ليالي ألف شهر وسماها ليلة القدر، تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر، سلام دائم البركة إلى طلوع الفجر على من يشاء من عباده بما أحكم من قضائه. اللهم صل على محمد وآله، وألهمنا معرفة فضله وإجال حرمته والتحفظ مما حضرت فيه، وعنا على صيامه بكف الجوارح عن معاصيك واستعمالها فيه بما يرضيك، حتى لا نصغي بأسماعنا إلى لغو، ولا نسرع بأبصارنا إلى لهو، وحتى لا نبسط أيدينا إلى محظور، ولا نخطو بأقدامنا إلى محجور، وحتى لا تعيا بطوننا إلا ما أحللت، ولا تنطق ألسنتنا إلا بما مثلت، ولا نتكلف إلا ما يديني من ثوابك، ولا نتعاطى إلا الذي من عقابك. ثم خلص ذلك كله من رياء المرائين وسمعة المسمعين، لا نشرك فيه أحدا دونك، ولا نبتغي به مرادا سواك. اللهم صل على محمد وآله، وقفنا فيه على مواقيت الصلاة صلوات الخمس بحدودها التي حددت وفروضها التي فرضت ووظائفها التي وظفت وأوقاتها التي وقت، وأنزلنا فيها منزلا المصيبين لمنازلها، الحافظين لأركانها، المؤدين لها في أوقاتها على ما سنه عبدك ورسولك، صلواتك عليه وآله في ركوعها وسجودها وجميع فواضلها، على أتم الطهور وأسبغ وأبين الخشوع وأبلغ، ووفقنا فيه لأن نصل أرحامنا بالبر والصلة، وأن نتعاهد جيراننا بالأفضل، وأن نتعاهد جيراننا بالإفضال والعطية، وأن نخلص أموالنا من التبعات، وأن نطهرها بإخراج الزكوات، وأن نراجع من هاجرنا، وأن ننصف من ظلمنا، وأن نسالم من عادانا، حاشا من عودي فيك ولك، فإنا العدو الذي لا نوالي، والحزب الذي لا نصافي، وأن نتقرب إليك فيه من الأعمال الزاكية بما تطهرنا به من الذنوب، وتعصمنا فيه مما نستأنف من العيوب، حتى لا يورد عليك أحد من ملائكتك إلا دون ما نورد من أبواب الطاعة إليك وأنواع القربة إليك. اللهم إني أسألك بحق هذا الشهر وبحق من تعبد لك فيه من ابتدائه إلى وقت فنائه، من ملك قربته أو نبي أرسلته أو عبد صالح اختصصته، أن تصلي على محمد وآله، وأهلنا فيه لما وعدت أوليائك من كرامتك، وأوجب لنا فيه ما أوجبت لأهل المبالغة في طاعتك، واجعلنا في نظم من استحق الرفيع الأعلى برحمتك. اللهم صل على محمد وآله، وجنبنا الإلحاد في توحيدك، والتقصير في تمجيدك، والشك في دينك، والعمى عن سبيلك، والإغفال لحرمتك، والانخداع لعدوك الشيطان الرجيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآله، وإذا كان لك في كل ليلة من ليالي شهرنا هذا رقاب يعتقها عفوك أو يهبها صفحك، فاجعل رقابنا من تلك الرقاب، واجعلنا لشهرنا من خير أهل وأصحاب. اللهم صل على محمد وآله، وامحق ذنوبنا مع محاق هلاله، واسلخ عنا تبعاتنا مع انسلاخ أيامه حتى ينقضي عنا وقد صفيتنا فيه من الخطيئات واخلصتنا فيه من السيئات. اللهم صل على محمد وآله، وإن ملنا فيه فعدلنا، وإن زغنا فيه فقومنا، وإن اشتمل علينا عدوك الشيطان فاستنقذنا منه. اللهم اشحنه بعبادتنا إياك، وزين أوقاته بطاعتنا لك، وعنا في نهاره على صيامه، وفي ليله على الصلاة والتضرع إليك والخشوع لك والذلة بين يديك، حتى لا يشهد نهاره علينا بغفلة ولا ليله بتفريط. اللهم واجعلنا في سائر الشهور والأيام كذلك ما عمرتنا، واجعلنا من عبادك الصالحين الذين يرثون الفردوس هم فيها خالدون، والذين يؤتون ما أتوا وقلوبهم وجلة أنهم إلى ربهم راجعون. ومن الذين يسارعون في الخيرات وهم لها سابقون. اللهم صل على محمد وآله في كل وقت وكل أوان وعلى كل حال، عدد ما صليت على من صليت عليه، وضعاف ذلك كله بالأضعاف التي لا يحصيها غيرك، إنك فعال لما تريد، برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
أفضل الصلاة والسلام عليك يا رسول الله محمد وآل محمد، صلوات صلوا على محمد. बताता है खुद ये खुदाए मोहम्मद, बनी है ये दुनिया बराए मोहम्मद। बताता है खुद ये खुदाए मोहम्मद, बनी है ये दुनिया बराए मोहम्मद। शबे कद्र कुरान सामित की सूरत, शबे कद्र कुरान सामित की सूरत, मुकम्मल हुई है सनाए मोहम्मद, बनी है ये दुनिया बराए मोहम्मद। बताता है खुद ये खुदाए मोहम्मद, बनी है ये दुनिया बराए मोहम्मद। सरे अर्श मेराज की इंतहा पे, सरे अर्श मेराज की इंतहा पे, نہ پہنچا کوئی بھی سوائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد، برے چین سے بستر مصطفیٰ پہ، برے چین سے بستر مصطفیٰ پہ، علی سو رہے ہیں بجائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد، یہ من کنت مولا سے ثابت ہوا ہے، یہ من کنت مولا سے ثابت ہوا ہے، ولائے علی ہے ولائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد، ہے پشت نبی پہ بقائے نبوت، ہے پشت نبی پہ بقائے نبوت، وہی آئی سرنا اٹھائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد، بتاتا ہے خود یہ خدائے محمد، بنی ہے یہ دنیا برائے محمد، افضل الصلاة والسلام علیک یا رسول اللہ محمد و آل محمد، صلوات صلو علی محمد، رمضان مبارک۔
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please recite a surah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please recite a surah Fatiha for all the marhumin whose names are currently being displayed, and for marhumin of kul mu'minin and mu'minat, muslimin and muslimat. Al-Fatiha.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع المذنبين وخاتم النبيين نبينا وشفينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد، اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وهو أصدق الصادقين وقوله الحق، أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون، اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Respected scholars, elders of the community, my brothers and sisters in Islam, all of those brothers and sisters who are watching online, Salamun alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we have been blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once again to be able to witness the holy month of Ramadan and to be able to engage in fasting, in prayers, in supplications, in dua, in amal, and get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The purpose of fasting in this famous ayah of the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the purpose is taqwa. لَأَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. That the purpose is taqwa. But Allah has used the word لَأَلَّكُمْ. لَأَلَّكُمْ means that perhaps you will attain taqwa. Taqwa is not guaranteed. Perhaps you will attain taqwa. Maybe you will attain taqwa. And that means that in order for us to attain taqwa, we have to understand that there are many different levels of fasting. And once we start to master and witness the different levels of fasting, only then we will be able to elevate ourselves and ascend towards the higher dimensions and the higher stages of taqwa. This is very important to understand, and because of that, we have to appreciate that different levels of fasting will allow us to then attain different dimensions and levels of taqwa, whereby we can attain more and more proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so it is important to understand that there is the physical or the jurisprudential fast, which is probably the lowest level of fasting. Then there is the moral ethical fast, which is a higher level of fasting. And then, of course, the highest of the levels is the spiritual fast, which is the highest level of fasting. We need to try and struggle and strive towards achieving these higher levels of fasting so that we may be able to ascend and elevate ourselves towards the higher levels of connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and higher levels of spirituality to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in order to do that, of course, we need to make sure that we have been able to really master the physical fast. If our bodies are healthy, only then we will be able to engage in a higher level of fast, such as the prayers and the supplications and the du'as and the amals. The true essence of these du'as and amals will come if your body is healthy, if your body is strong, and it's able to then be able to worship Allah in the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deserves to be worshipped. So looking after your health becomes critical in order for you to start to move and ascend towards higher levels of fasting, thereby achieving higher levels of taqwa. How do we do that? So I ask you to remember the 5 M's. The 5 M's are monitoring your health, meal planning, making the most of your fast, medication management, and movement. These are the 5 M's that you need to understand in order to maximize your physical fast. The fast that to a large extent focuses on refraining from many things, but most importantly, refraining from food and water and drink. And that is the most important part of that physical fast that is difficult sometimes, especially in these months, where the fast can be almost 17 and a half hours to 18 hours long. So that's what we need to understand. So how do we monitor our health? It's important that we make sure that we measure the parameters that are readily available to us. So if you're a diabetic, you want to be able to monitor your glucose throughout the fast, so that you want to make sure that your glucose levels are in the optimum range. If you have high blood pressure, you can monitor your blood pressure during the day to make sure that you are your blood pressure is well controlled. And then be aware of some of the signs that will kind of give you a warning on if you are getting into trouble, especially with your physical fast. Signs of dehydration, signs, of decreased sugars for those people who have diabetes. So trembling, headaches, dizziness, sweating, extreme fatigue and tiredness, sometimes mood changes and irritability, extreme feelings of hunger. These are all warning signs that may tell you that, you know what, I need to work on this physical fast a little bit better in order to be able to make sure that my health is optimum in this holy month of Ramadan. And then one of the things in that is the other M, which is the meal planning. meal planning becomes very important, where you need to avoid greasy food, greasy fried foods and heavy sweets, both at iftar and at suhoor. Why? Because what happens is when you have really high fried foods and heavy sweets, your sugar peaks very highly and then it falls very precipitously. And when it falls very precipitously, that's when you start to get the symptoms of feeling tired, you get headaches, you feel fatigued, you get irritable, because your body has gone with a very high peak in sugar and then it falls precipitously. Also be careful of caffeine. Make sure that your caffeine intake during the fast is well controlled. It doesn't mean you don't have to have chai and you don't have to have those caffeinated drinks, and we need a cup of tea when we break our fast. But the thing is that to not have so much caffeine during, from the time of iftar until suhoor, where caffeine will also decrease in levels of caffeine precipitously, will also cause some of these warning signs, symptoms that I talked about. For my youth, brothers and sisters, I really want you to make sure that you avoid those, energy drinks like Monster and Red Bull and all those stuff. They give you very high levels of certain chemicals in your body, and then you get a very, very strong kind of down feeling because those levels drop. And those are the things that you want to avoid. Most important is to have frequent small meals from the time of iftar until the time of suhoor as much as possible. Frequent smaller meals is the way to go, and to avoid that carbohydrate loading sometimes that we do, especially in this holy month of Ramadan. The other thing about meal planning that's important is make sure that you're well hydrated. Water is the most important thing. Drink lots of water. You want to make sure that you don't get dehydrated. So small amounts of water throughout from iftar until the time of suhoor. Avoid drinking fruit juices as much as possible. They're very high in sugar. The cola drinks also are very high in sugar. They're also very high in caffeine. They're also acidic. As much as possible, focus on drinking water because dehydration can be a major concern, and especially among some of our population, especially our elderly population, it can cause major issues such as constipation. A lot of us will probably experience constipation, and it can also cause some dangerous things like clots in your legs and so on and so forth. So you want to make sure that you have foods that contain water that will allow you to have this slow release of water throughout the day, so that you continue to be reasonably well hydrated throughout the day. At the time of suhoor especially, therefore, your diet needs to be really well balanced. Make sure that your diet contains high amounts of protein. So if it's chicken, if it's fish, eggs are really important. Some complex carbohydrates as well, such as cheese, yogurt, rice, wheat bread. Feta cheeses are good. The only problem with feta cheeses sometimes is some of the feta cheeses are very high salt content, so you want to be careful about that. But you want to make sure that there is lots of protein and then a good amount of fiber and fruits and vegetables. The vegetables sometimes contain a good amount of water that is released throughout the day, and you're able to maintain a level of hydration. So cucumber, watermelon, so on and so forth. These are good things to have. Carrots, these are good things to have because they have slow release of water throughout the day. It will also help you with constipation and also make you feel less hungry as well. Some of the foods, of course, are very acidic. You want to prevent heartburn, so avoiding very spicy hot foods, especially before you go to sleep. because when you go to sleep, the foods tend to go up into your gut and you get start getting some heartburn as well. And so you want to try and avoid those kind of foods. You want to be able to maintain a reasonably good, healthy diet in Shahru Ramadan, because if you do that, it will have positive effects on your blood pressure, and it may also have a very good effect on maintaining and controlling your cholesterol. So it's really important to make sure that it's very balanced. Of course, it's an opportunity for us to make the most of the fast, right? So making the most of your fasting, which is the other M, is that, focus on those unhealthy habits that you really have tried very hard to get rid of. So if you have been a smoker, probably the best time to give up smoking is during the holy month of Ramadan, because for 17, 18 hours, you're not going to be smoking, and you may be able to use some aids, such as a nicotine patch or something like that, to help you with trying to give up the smoking habit. You may take an opportunity to, control all the junk food ingestion that you may have, especially during this coronavirus outbreak, where most of us are at home. We are tending to eat a lot more junk food because we're staying at home. This is an opportunity, whilst you are even at home and you're physically distancing yourself, you want to be able to control those kind of things and making the most of that fast and taking the opportunity to make the most of the fast in order to have a healthy fast. Of course, medication management is the other M. And this is particularly important for those people who have many chronic diseases. If you have some chronic diseases like diabetes or heart disease or high blood pressure or things like that, you want to make sure that you visit your family physician before the start of the month of Ramadan. Why? Because there are many medications that will either need to be adjusted, or the timing of the medications may need to change. Your physician may decide to change the timing of your medication. And in some cases, some medications may even need to be stopped temporarily in order to control your chronic illness, such as diabetes or high blood pressure or congestive heart failure or so on and so forth. So visit your family physician well before the holy month of Ramadan and work with your family physician to be able to manage some of those medications. The diabetics especially, I would suggest you need to really visit your doctor before the month of Ramadan, because there will be an emphasis on how you can monitor your blood glucose during your sugars during the day whilst you're fasting. Some of the medications will need to be changed. Your kidney function may need to be monitored 2 or 3 times during the month of Ramadan, especially if you're prone to dehydration. And to a large extent, a lot of the diabetics will be able to safely fast, especially if you fall in the low risk category or a medium risk category, where generally your diabetes is reasonably well controlled. With some changes to medications and good meal planning, you will actually be able to fast quite safely. Of course, there is going to be a group of people who are diabetics who are very high risk, where the physician may advise you to not fast, but that's a conversation you should have with your doctor. The heart medications also may need to be adjusted. So again, go and visit your doctor, but remember the most important thing. The most important thing is, please do not adjust your own medications without consulting with your family doctor or with a physician, so that it's done in a safe and effective manner. That's very, very important. Exercise becomes really important as well. Of course, exercise in the holy month of Ramadan with 17, 18-hour fast in the middle of summer, you won't be able to go to the gym or to, run, a very extensive cardio on your treadmills and so on and so forth. You can't go to the gym anyway most of the time during these days of COVID-19. But exercise, you need to be smart. You want to avoid intense exercise, especially during the middle of the day, but having a good leisurely walk about an hour or so prior to iftar for about 30 minutes, this is a very important. Movement becomes very important. It's quite safe to walk outside if it's just you and your immediate family member, like your spouse or your child, you can walk quite safely. Make sure that you're not walking in groups because you want to maintain social or physical distancing, especially in these times of COVID-19. And worst comes to worst, you can walk within your home. There are many things that you can do, going up and down the stairs, walking within the home, and maybe doing a little bit of light housework and helping each other out in the family to do some housework. This all will allow you to have a level of exercise that will be very useful for you in this holy month of Ramadan. Movement and exercise is very important in this holy month of Ramadan. So the question comes, of course, now that we are in this state of COVID-19 and most of us are socially distancing. I don't like the word socially distancing, but physically distancing. Most of us are staying at home. Many are working from home. So what kind of things do I have to look out for in this COVID-19 environment, especially in the holy month of Ramadan? So let me off the bat say one thing, that generally you should have no problem in fasting in the holy month of Ramadan with respect to this COVID-19 pandemic. If you are to take appropriate measures, and if you take appropriate precautions, then you're going to be quite safe to fast during the holy month of Ramadan. But it's important, number one, to optimize your immune system. How do you optimize your immune system in order to decrease the potential of a COVID-19 infection? Have a healthy diet that optimizes your immune system. Making sure that you are hydrated most of the day with taking foods that will allow you to have a good level of hydration, a reasonable level of hydration. Make sure that you continue to do those important infection control measures, like washing of your hands, making sure that there is physical distancing, and so on. So all of those infection control measures in order to decrease infections become very important. If you're going outside, especially you're going to buy groceries or things like that, make sure you wear a mask. Those are good infection control measures to take. You make sure you have some gloves on. Those are still the most important things to take, measures to take whilst you're fasting. Exercise, like I said, you could do exercise. You could walk outside with your spouse, have a walk around the block or something like that. As long as it's between you and an immediate family member that lives with you, there is no problem. You shouldn't be walking in groups, of course, because of the restrictions around physical distancing. The other most important thing that allows you to optimize your immune system is really having a good sleep. This is very hard in the holy month of Ramadan. If you have a huge amount of food and load yourself just before you go to sleep, you will see that your sleep will be erratic, right? It will be fragmented, right? And then also remember the time between going to sleep and waking up for suhoor is not a lot of time. And then you have your suhoor and then you have to wake up again to go to work. All of those things are going to really have an impact on your sleep. Try as much as possible to have a good amount of sleep. So if you are taking iftar and then you go to sleep a few hours after that, wake up for suhoor, have your suhoor, recite your salat, and after that, go to sleep and have a good sleep. Important also is, if possible, in the late afternoon when you come back from work, or even if you are staying at home, is to get a power nap in. Maybe, an hour nap in the afternoon has shown to have a huge effect on people who are fasting. It has an effect on the energy of the people who are fasting. It gives you a good, restful sleep, and it also will strengthen your immune system. You want to, of course, avoid gatherings. Gatherings need to be avoided. And so you need to be able to make sure that you are breaking your fast at home. And I would suggest that if you have family and friends, you can still have iftar virtually. Yeah, arrange it in such a way that you do your salat, and after a certain time, you're all gathered at the table. Your computers are on. You're in Zoom, and you're actually eating together virtually. And you can still have a conversation and be able to eat together virtually. I think it's going to be very important for us to look at those kind of strategies in this holy month of Ramadan. The question always comes, well, can I share food or can I order out? Yes, you can. The only thing is that be careful. As far as sharing food, my suggestion is that you will obviously share food with people who are probably from your own family or even your friends. And you should be reasonably confident that the people who have presented or prepared those foods, are asymptomatic. They're not having any symptoms. And even the same for ordering out. If you want to order out, you want to order out from those places where you are reasonably confident that that particular place has taken the appropriate infection control measures in order to prepare that food. So I think that becomes very important. And of course, the communities around the world are arranging virtual congregational du'as and amals and so on and so forth, which then becomes also very important as well. So most people will have no problems with their health whilst they're fasting in Shahr Ramadan, provided you plan it out properly and you focus on the 5 M's. And healthy fasting strategies will allow you to be able to concentrate and focus on the spiritual benefits of this great holy month. But there are going to be some people who are going to be unable to fast. And people who may not be able to fast because of severe medical problems or severe medical illnesses, sometimes they have feelings of guilt. They have a tendency, they feel bad about it, they see other people fasting, and they feel inadequate that they have not been able to fast in this holy month. If you are unable to fast, and jurisprudentially, you are being excused to fast. And in some cases, it may even be haram for you to fast if you have some serious medical illnesses. It's something very interesting that Ayatollah Jawadi Amali says, that remember that when you have been excused from fasting because of whatever reason it may be, like a severe medical illness or a short travel or whatever it is, remember that it is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has given you that gift given your condition. So accept the gift. Do not reject it. Because in accepting a gift from Allah, there is pleasure of Allah in it. And so don't feel guilty about it, because you still have the ability to attain the higher levels of fasting outside of the physical level of fasting, which I want to just very briefly touch on. The higher level of fasting is really the moral and ethical fast, right? Here, every member of the body actually fasts. Here, this is the fast that is anticipated from the believers. And the dua of Imam al-Sajjad, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad, at the beginning of the holy month of Ramadan, he says something very important in this. He asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this dua, help us to fast in restraining our limbs from the acts of disobedience towards you, or employing our limbs in those acts which actually please you, O Allah. And do not help us so that our ears are not listening to those things that are idle talk, and our eyes are not seeing those things that are going to lead us to diversion, and that we do not stretch out our hands towards those things that are forbidden, and we do not fill our bellies with those things that are haram, and our tongues are controlled in a way so that we are not speaking in a way that is speaking things like backbiting or so on and so forth, which would be a cause of your punishment. So understanding that now it's not just about hunger and thirst, it's about your whole body that is experiencing the fast. Every part of your body is experiencing the fast. It's a very important story of a lady in Medina. The Holy Prophet was walking in the holy month of Ramadan, and there was a lady who was abusing her servant. And when this lady was abusing her servant, the Holy Prophet stopped. And he said to his companions, "Get me a glass of water." And they got him some water. He went to this lady and he said, "Why don't you have this glass of water?" And the lady said, "Ya Rasulullah, it is the holy month of Ramadan and I am fasting." And the Holy Prophet ﷺ said to her that, "No, you are not fasting. All you have done is you have refrained from eating and drinking. You are just feeling the pangs of hunger and thirst. You are not fasting. For if you were fasting, your behavior towards others would be a reflection of your fasting. Your behavior is not moral. Your behavior is not ethical. There is more to fasting than just hunger and thirst. There is an opportunity here to develop virtues of morality. That is the ethical and moral fast, to have a divine color in you. So everything that you are doing, there is some reflection and manifestation of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala within ourselves, understanding those names and manifesting them. If Allah is compassionate, then how compassionate am I? If Allah is merciful, then how merciful am I? If Allah is generous, then how generous am I? That's the moral and ethical fast that we want to achieve. That then allows us to ascend and progress to a higher dimension, the dimension of the spiritual fast. This fast is one, once you have mastered the jurisprudential or the physical fast, you have mastered the moral and the ethical fast, now you are able to then progress towards the spiritual fast, the highest level of fasting, disengaging oneself from anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where every thought, every action, every speech, everything that you do in this month is solely and only for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is where you protect your heart, from other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The reward of such a fast, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has says that the fast is for me and I am its reward. Allah does not say that the fast is for me and I will give you the reward. No, Allah says that this fast is for me and I myself am the reward of the fast. So my proximity then becomes the reward of such a fast. And that is when one gains that level of ma'rifah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that insight into yourself and your nafs. And the peak of this hopefully comes as the peak reaches on those beautiful nights of Laylatul Qadr, where you have the opportunity to change your destiny in a way that you get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and manifest His name to the fullest possible ability and potential that you have. And it allows us then to realize our potential and experience the presence of Allah within ourselves. Remember, of course, that this is a month where we change our perspective, a month where the Quran and the dua, is one where we need to not only read the Quran and read the dua, but understand the Quran. Not just to better read it, but appreciate it, understand it, and then practically implement it within our own lives. A month that will allow us to reflect and contemplate. And sometimes I think we need to break out from this shell of ritualism that we have. We're sometimes so ingrained in ritualism, and we need to sometimes break out of that shell and liberate ourselves in order to be able to understand and have more knowledge and ma'rifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wassalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام ولك السلام وإليك يعود السلام. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام على الأئمة الهادين المهديين. السلام على جميع أنبياء الله ورسله وملائكته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام على علي أمير المؤمنين. السلام على فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. السلام على الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة أجمعين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام على علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام على محمد بن علي باقر علم النبيين. السلام على جعفر بن محمد الصادق. السلام على موسى بن جعفر الكاظم. السلام على علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام على محمد بن علي الجواد. السلام على علي بن محمد الهادي. السلام على الحسن بن علي الزكي العسكري. السلام على الحجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي صلوات الله عليهم.
Mu'mineen, Salamun alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, Ramadan Mubarak. The blessed month is upon us, and tonight is the first night of Shahr Ramadan. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, in his sermon welcoming the blessed month said, O people, indeed the month of Allah has approached you with its blessings, mercy and forgiveness. In the eyes of Allah, it is the best of all months. Its days are the best of all days. Its nights are the best of all nights. And its hours are the best of all hours. It is a month in which you have been invited to be guests of Allah, and you have been made in it the people who have honor of Allah. Your breathing in it is tasbih. Your sleep in it is an act of ibadah. Your deeds are accepted and your prayers are answered to. Therefore, ask your Lord with sincere intentions and pure hearts to help you in fasting during this month and in reciting his book. For the most unfortunate is one who is deprived of Allah's forgiveness in this great month. Mu'mineen, we continue to go through extraordinary times, and this Ramadan will be like no other that we have experienced. Ramadan is perhaps one of the busiest times of the year for us. The community comes together for 30 consecutive days, and the center is bustling with activity. This year, however, the centers will be quiet, but we're hoping to bring some of that spirit of Ramadan into your homes. To that end, we're honored and blessed this evening to bring our first interactive program for this blessed month. We have with us this evening our resident alim, Maulana Sayyid Muhammad Rizvi. I will now invite him to say a few words, and then inshallah we will open up the lines for questions. You should have a Menti code at the bottom of your screens. Please submit your questions online, and we will try to get to as many of them as possible. Please do try to restrict your questions to the subject at hand, which is Ramadan, and any questions related to Shahr Ramadan. And if we do have time at the end, then inshallah we will try to address any other questions that you may have for Maulana Sahib. With that introduction, I'll now pass it on to Maulana.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الدائمة الباقية على أعدائهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. Dear sisters and brothers in Iman, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Indeed, this is a very unprecedented way of, starting the month of Ramadan. I think all of us in our lifetime, we could not imagine doing Ramadan without going to the masjid or the center or be part of the community during these holy nights. And so for tonight, this question answer session that we have, I would like to focus on the very first ayat in the passage of the ayat of Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the purpose of fasting. In Surah Baqarah, ayat number 183, where it says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum, where it says that all you who believe, fasting has been prescribed upon you, and this is not something new. Even the nations who came before, they had kind of a fasting according to their own religious laws at the time. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends by two words, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. لَعَلَّ means, hopefully you will maintain or acquire righteousness and taqwa. And that is where we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes on this point of taqwa. Let us not make our fasting just an exercise of a physical dimension where we refrain from food and drink and certain activities. Let us always keep this purpose of fasting the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described, which is to attain taqwa and higher levels of taqwa. And essentially what it means is basically we have to inculcate that sense in our heart and our mind that we do not do anything which is going to displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not a matter of fearing Allah as the essence. No, it is the issue of fearing the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a very important element of taqwa is basically this awareness of His presence in our life. In the words of Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, he in Nahj Balagha, in many places he says, you need to protect the taqwa in order for the taqwa to protect you. And so we realize that this element which is known as taqwa in our life, righteousness, awareness of Allah's presence in our life, this has the ability to grow or also the ability of decreasing. And we have to constantly work on it. Month of Ramadan is an opportunity where by fasting we are able to, basically go deep into our spiritual dimension and look at this element of taqwa. So inshallah, when we go through this exercise of the fasting in the month of Ramadan, let us always keep this purpose of fasting in our minds, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Baqarah, ayat number 183. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq to understand the wisdom of fasting and fulfill it in the best manner. Aqid.
Shukran, Sayyidina. Thank you so much for that introduction. Since we had the Menti code up there immediately after our main program, we already have a number of questions that have started coming in. And like I said earlier, we're going to try to focus on the month of Ramadan and the act of fasting and perhaps some of the rituals that we complete in the month of Ramadan. And we'll try to restrict those questions to that topic so that we can try to get as much out of the session as possible. So Sayyidina, the first question I have is that I don't understand the Quran in Arabic. Why is there so much emphasis on finishing the Quran if we don't understand its verses?
It is a good question, and let me start by emphasizing on the point that besides reciting the Quran in Arabic, it is also important to understand the Quran. But I would not say, at least in the month of Ramadan, to replace the Arabic recitation with the translation. You can keep, both together. Dedicate maybe some time to look at the translation, but also, go through the tradition of reciting the Arabic version. The reason why we talk about it is because, remember, Quran is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has its own significance. When we look at the books, for example, Torah and Injil, which was revealed before, one of the distinctions of the Quran compared to other revelations is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in a way, guaranteed that He is going to preserve this book. And the beauty of Quran is that, in spite of all the differences you see among the Muslims, so many different madahib, so many schools of thought, different traditions, spiritual, non-spiritual, and others, all Muslims are unanimous on the issue of the text of the Quran. They would disagree on interpretation of some of the verses, but the text of the Quran is believed to be same by all Muslims. And the one way by how it has been preserved is actually this issue of reciting the Quran in Arabic language. Even if you look at the New Testament, for example, the original Aramaic, language which was used by Isa ibn Maryam, there is no, existence of their holy book in that language. These are all translations of translations which came later on. And so we have this very unique situation where we have the Quran maintained through the centuries And we have, alhamdulillah, in every generation of the Muslim world, that there are people who have committed the entire Quran to their memory. And so it has its own importance and its own blessing. However, that doesn't mean you only read the Arabic Quran. If you are going to read, let's say, 10 pages or 5 pages of the Arabic, make a point of at least read and reflect on 1 page of the translation. Of course, other than Ramadan or even during other times, if you just look at the translation and study it, there's no problem in that. But the importance of maintaining the original language of the book it has its own importance in our faith.
Thank you, Sayyidina. I have two questions that are somewhat related, and I'll ask them both together. Why is there always a discrepancy in the start of the month of Ramadan, sometimes even amongst us as Shias, and then also the difference between us and some of the other sects in Islam, whereas for the rest of the year, we're always aligned together? How does this reflect on our unity in the West? And the second question, sort of related to that, is that why is it so special to look at the moon? And this is from a young 9-year-old saying, why is it so special to look at the moon to identify the start of a new month?
Okay, let me start with the second one because that's more simpler. When we talk about the Islamic calendar, the calendar which is our religious calendar means there is no problem for us in having the common calendar or some other calendars for our business and other activities. But when it comes to our religious rituals and activities, we basically use the Hijra calendar. And in Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically talks about the moon as the basis of the calendar. And so for us, the sighting of the crescent is the beginning of the lunar month. And that's why it becomes very crucial for us, especially during the month of Ramadan and Shawwal, because we are looking at the obligation of fasting and the obligation of not fasting on the 1st of Shawwal. So there it becomes very crucial for us. Now, when it comes to the first question about unity, well, I would refer those who are interested to look more into it. I had a detailed seminar where I talked about this issue from the scientific as well as jurisprudence from the fiqh point of view, from the religious point of view. And this was in August of 2013. And so it is available on the Islamic Center website. If you go, you will be able to watch that. It is a detailed description of, what is the criteria used by Muslims, and even some of the differences which are there, let's say in the opinion of the late Ayatollah Khoui, as opposed to the opinion of our present Marja Grand Ayatollah Sistani. The difference actually, and then we talk about the difference between Shia and Sunni. Well, there are two different madhahib. And even among Sunnis, there are also different schools among them. As groups like ISNA would go with the declaration based on their theory regarding the birth of the moon before the sunset in Mecca. But there are many other, including in Toronto area, a major group of the Sunni Muslims actually look at the original North American or South American sighting. They don't go with the Middle Eastern sighting. And so, they are different schools. They have their own perspective about, how you determine the beginning of the lunar month. Among the Shias, in the last few years, we have been mostly okay. There have been a sense of unity because the opinions of Ayatollah Sistani and Ayatollah Khamenei now has become very close as far as the scientific data about the possibility of sighting the crescent is concerned. That has made things much easier for us even to predict. If you see in the last few years, our calendar has mostly, I wouldn't say every month, but mostly we have been on the point as far as the prediction of the sighting of the moon is concerned. And so if you look at this Ramadan, you look at the Shia community in North America, in Canada and US, there is unity, and the vast majority, as far as I know, have started with the Ramadan Saturday to be the first day of Ramadan. Of course, there is a sighting reports about sighting by optical aid binoculars in California area. For those who follow a marja who believes in that, like Ayatollah Khamenei, for them, that was the day before, but the vast majority are still on the same page as far as the beginning of the month of Ramadan.
Thank you, Maulana. I have a question from a 7-year-old saying, Maulana Rizvi, I'm 7 years old. What can we do for our elderly who are breaking their fasts by themselves in these days?
Well, it's a very good question, and may Allah bless you and bless your parents to be concerned for your, elderly members of the family or relatives. We are going through very difficult times, and although we cannot do the iftar together, whether it's at home or with relatives and friends or at the masjid, you can still use the modern technology and maybe at least do the iftar where you can see one another visually. So you are not there, but at least you are able to give them company through the new technology that we have. And we should be thankful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given us this challenge of coronavirus, but we also have this blessing of how to connect to one another. And so that's a very important point. I think even the adult children who live separate from their elderly parents should think about it and at least make a point of doing the iftar at the same time. So visually they can at least talk to one another and see one another. Inshallah.
Thank you, Maulana. Can you elaborate a little bit about the rules regarding fasting for a nursing mother?
As far as the nursing mother is concerned, Islam, although in general we say that fasting is obligatory for any person who is baligh and physically capable of fasting, but there are certain, exemptions to the rule. When it comes to the nursing mother, where they realize by fasting it will have an impact on their own health or the health of the child, then they are exempted from fasting in Ramadan at that time. And of course, they will have to do qada once the feeding time is over, or the year or 2 years. And so besides qaza, they also have to pay fidya. Fidya is 750 grams of rice or flour to be given to the poor and needy. So for the whole month, fidya would be about 22.5 kilo of rice or flour. And this has to be given at the end to the needy and the poor in kind. So remember, it's qaza, and then there's also fidya.
Thank you, Maulana. This was a question that I think came up a few days ago, and you even addressed it in one of your, I think, Tuesday or Friday sessions. But the questioner is asking, can you advise on Ayatollah Sistani's ruling on chewing sugar-free gum while fasting?
Well, yes, that issue came up based on this hypothetical, case that people had made, which really has no basis. That if you keep your throat and mouth dry, the risk of getting this virus increases. So, but that's beside the point. When it comes to the chewing of gum by itself is concerned, if it is sugarless and doesn't have a flavor, according to Ayatollah Sistani, just chewing the gum in fasting does not invalidate the fasting, provided no crumbs of the gum goes under the throat. Having said that, I would say, we have to be careful about it. Don't take this issue lightly. It goes, if I may use, against the akhlaqi or the spiritual dimension of fasting. And there is a risk that you might end up swallowing bits and pieces of the gum. And since you are doing this, something which you are doing intentionally in a way because you are actively doing it, it could even, not only make your fast batil, but there might even be a kafara with it. And so I would strongly urge you not to look at this as an easy way of starting to chew gum during the month of Ramadan. Sometimes people say, well, we go to offices, we meet the people, and there might be, foul smell from the mouth. Well, you can brush. Brushing is not forbidden in the state of fasting. You can even use the toothpaste, provided the same thing. It doesn't go under the throat. You just spit it out. So I would say that although the mas'ala is there, but be careful on this matter.
Thank you. Maulana, what daily fixed routine would you recommend in this blessed month to take maximum advantage of the spiritual month that we're in right now?
Well, I think a daily routine would have been different in normal times, but we are going through this lockdown situation where majority of the people would be at home. So I would emphasize on number one, to do the prayers at the prime time, not to delay. We don't have an excuse anymore, especially during this time. And if you look at the video message relayed today, I had talked about segments from the sermon of the Prophet welcoming the month of Ramadan. It says something that, raise your hand at the time of the prayers. He's referring to the time of prime time of the prayer. That is the time where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be listening to the du'as. And so it's very important for us, number one, to do the daily prayers on the prime time. Besides that, I would also emphasize that the point of trying to doing the nafila prayers as much as we can. The recitation of Quran is an essential part, so also schedule something. Maybe you just follow the routine that we have of online programming, that the issue of Quran Khani should be there. Or if you cannot follow that routine, have a dedicated time in your daily schedule to recite the Quran in Arabic. Also focus on maybe half a page on the Arabic English translation, or the Urdu translation, or Gujarati translation. Besides that, one more point I would like to emphasize, which is in a way not discussed or even practiced by the Shias that much. The Sunni Muslims have something known as Taraweeh. Now, we don't believe in that Jamaat format of doing Sunnah prayers. But remember that we have a recommendation during the month of Ramadan to recite 20 rakat every night from the beginning to the end of the month during the night time. So 20 rakat, 2 rakat 10 times. And from eve of 21st to the end of the month, you would add 10 more rakat to that. And so you will be reciting 15 two rakat namaz, sunnah. Of course, you can utilize that time to do your own qaza prayers. And so these are the spiritual elements, I think, which should be an integral part of the daily routine. Then, of course, the issues of du'as, you do not necessarily, when it comes to du'as, I would like to emphasize on point. Sometimes we really emphasize that, okay, there are 5 du'as, we must recite all 5 tonight. No, just pick one dua, and look at the translation of it, and then sit down and recite. Focusing on the translation of du'as is very, very important when we talk about recitation of the du'as. And so, these would be I think, the main essential parts of the routine as far as spiritual program of the month of Ramadan.
Thank you. When is it most preferable to break your fast? Should one break your fast after having prayed, after Salat? Or should one break his or her fast as soon as the time for breaking one's fast sets in?
The recommendation would be to break the fast after the Maghrib namaz. Although you can do it immediately after, as the Maghrib time sets in, the recommendation would be to do after the Maghrib prayers. So at least, breaking the fast simply by eating khurma, date, or something more light, and then you get up and do your Isha and then have the meal later on, would be the better way to go.
Thank you. Mara, is it okay to watch videos of people eating while you yourself are fasting?
If it's not going to make you hungry, yes, it's okay. No, there's nothing, no prohibition on you looking at people, whether in video or in real form, when in the state of fasting, when others are eating. There's no problem there.
Okay. Malana, if a lady has her discharge while she's fasting, is her fast broken?
One of the conditions for validity of fast is the issue of taharat as far as ladies are concerned. So if the cycle starts at any point between Fajr and Maghrib, even if it's just 5 minutes before Maghrib, the fast becomes null and void. Of course, there is no issue of kafara or sin. No, this is just one of the requirements for validity of fasting would be missing then, and so she will not be in the state of fasting, even if it happens after Zohar time. Sometimes I get these questions. They think if it happens after Zohar, then the fasting is okay. No, even if it happens few minutes before Maghrib, that day's fast is gone.
Thank you, Sayyidina. One question that's come in is with regards to the difference between the time of Imsak and the time of Fajr. And then also related to that same question, why is there a difference in the times of Maghrib amongst the different sects?
As far as the Imsak and the Fajr is, the actual beginning of the fast is from what we call dawn, or from Fajr or Subh, the time. Imsak just means to withhold your hand from eating, or withhold yourself from eating and drinking. Now that is not really a time. It's not that, the sun has reached so many degrees below the horizon and that's the Imsak, no. And so people basically use arbitrarily 5 minutes before or 10 minutes before. So it depends on who has met the timetable. We just keep about 5 minutes just to accommodate, maybe, you know, our clocks might not be accurate. Even if you look at the timings, they are not, you know, the watches or the clocks at home, for example, will not always be exactly same. And so it's better to stop eating and drinking before the actual time, which is the Fajr or Subh namaz time. So that's where you have imsak, which is different from Fajr. And as I said, you know, those who make the timetable, it's an arbitrary, you know, decision whether you do it 5 minutes before Fajr or 10 minutes before. Sometimes some centers have the issues of they are not sure about the timing of Fajr. Therefore, they want to be more precautionary and they actually pull the imsak time further back. Maybe they will say 15 minutes before Fajr. As far as the Maghrib timing is concerned, there is a difference between the Shia and the Sunni fiqh on this issue. According to the Sunni madhab, once the sunset takes place, that is the time of Maghrib. In the Shia fiqh, Maghrib is not actually the sunset, rather when the twilight, you know, is on the from the horizon actually reaches to the top. That's when the Maghrib starts. And for that to happen, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes. So that's why you will see you have sunset time and then you have Maghrib time. So there is a kind of a gap between the two. And this is where, you know, the time of Maghrib is determined according to the Shia fiqh.
Thank you, Sayyidina. There are two questions that have come in somewhat related about the nights of Qadr. The nights of Qadr are known to be the odd nights in the latter part of the month of Ramadan, but we only perform the Amal of the nights of Qadr on the 19th, 21st, and 23rd nights, and we don't perform them on some of the other nights. Can you speak a little bit about the importance of the nights of Qadr and why those 3 nights and not some of the other odd nights?
The importance of Laylatul Qadr is obvious by the words in Surah Al-Qadr where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Laylatul Qadr khayrun min alf shahr. That one night of Qadr is better than, 1,000 months. And so the importance that is there in the Quran. This is where, as we talk about it during those nights, that this is the time where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way gives the 1-year plan to the malaika who control the affairs of the human life as well as the world. And that is where we need to seek, the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that whatever is being decreed for us is going to be the best for us. And that is now the mystery part of is that the Prophet and the Imams in the Shia and the Sunni tradition both have not really fixed which night it is. The famous statement is that it's one of the odd nights in the last 10 days. But then we see some other ahadith, for example, in our tradition, Shia, Ahlul Bayt, the statements, where the eve of 19th, the eve of 21st, and the eve of 23rd. So 21st and 23rd eves would be fitting in the last 10 days of Ramadan. But looking at the emphasis, this is where the overall understanding of the Shia ulama, based on the hadith of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, is that the Laylatul Qadr is most probably one of these 3 nights. And so in order not to miss out from the blessing and the special dimension of this night, we do the Amal on all 3 nights. Other nights is not that much emphasized in the Ahlul Bayt ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt. And so we normally, do only on the eve of 19th, 21st, and 23rd.
Thank you, Maulana. Someone sent a question that says, if someone sent you a hadith on WhatsApp, for example, with regards to fasting, or any hadith from the Prophet or the Ma'asumin alayhi salam, and it was an incorrect hadith, and you forward this hadith to others, does that invalidate your fast?
I would say this is one of the new mas'ala. Well, what invalidates fast is attributing a statement to Allah, Rasul, and the Imam falsely and wrongfully, knowing that is not Allah's statement, or it's not from Rasul, it's not from the Imam. And yet a person says, Qala Allah, or Qala Rasul, or Qala Sadiq, then that person's fast would be invalid. Similarly, if he writes that and circulates that, then knowingly that this is wrong, then it would be the same thing. Now, forwarding the hadith is probably not the same thing, I would say. Forwarding is something else rather than initiating it. So probably the person who initiated, knowing that this is not a right hadith, and attributes it to the Masoom or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that person's fasting could be in jeopardy. But not the issue of forwarding. But I think we should learn this lesson of not just forwarding whatever comes to you. If you know this is wrong, hadith, then you should not be forwarding, because you are then promoting and propagating something which is munkar and wrong. And so we have to really be very selective and careful. Sometimes we just think, oh, this is nothing to do with haram or halal. This is a new technology. No, we are responsible for everything that we do.
Thank you, Maulana. If one breaks his or her fast due to medical reasons and then cannot make it up for a long period of time, 2 years, for example, what is the fidya, and is there also kafara for this individual?
If the fast was broken because of medical reason, then that is a justified reason and there would be no kafara there. Kafara is only when somebody breaks the fast without any, justified reason. So illness or medical condition would be a genuine reason to not fast or break the fast. And then a person has to do the qada for sure. And if the qada is done within the year, means before next Ramadan, then there is only qada. But if this qaza was not done till next Ramadan comes, so he is doing the qaza 2 years after that, then that person also has to pay fidya, not kafara, fidya, which is, as I said earlier, 750 grams of rice or flour, any staple food per day.
Thank you, Sayyidina. Maulana Sahib, I have an illness as a result of which I have to take medication. This medication causes me to get extremely hungry. And the doctors are saying that I have to have the medication and I can't fast for longer than 8 hours, otherwise it creates an imbalance in my body. How should I'd like to fast, but how should I proceed?
Looking at the season in which Ramadan is coming, the fasts are quite long, I would say, relatively speaking. So maybe this person who cannot, stay away from food for more than 8 hours because of this medical situation would be exempted from fasting. However, if you are able to make it up in winter time, for example, do the qada when the days are shorter, then that is what you should do. There will be no kafara there. You just have to do qada later on.
Thank you. in this instance, for the same individual, Maulana, would they have to try to fast for the first 6 to 8 hours of the day to see if they could fast until that point in time where they feel that they have to break their fast?
If it is a situation where they might be able to continue, but if they know for sure that this is the medical condition that a person has, and he will not be able to continue, then according to my assessment of the situation, no, they don't have to try. That will only apply for cases like, for example, let's take the the frontline fighters of coronavirus, the doctors and the nurse, for example. And if so, they will have to, for example, fast every day, start with their normal fasting. But in the middle of the day, or even in the afternoon, late afternoon, they realize that because of fasting, their ability to take care of their patients is really diminishing, and they are not able to fulfill their duty. Then they will be able to break the fast at that time. And there's no kafara for them, they just do the qadha. But it is not a blanket, permission not to fast. They will have to fast every day and evaluate that situation on a daily basis, whether they are able to continue on that one day or, they are not able to do so.
Thank you, Sayyidina. Is one allowed to use a puffer while fasting?
Puffer will not harm the fast. It is okay because it's basically inhaled and goes into the air passage and not to the food passage. So there's no problem with that.
Thank you. Maulana, when we're fasting in months other than the blessed month of Ramadan, so we're talking about for the balance of the year, can we fast on behalf of one of our marhumeen or multiple marhumeens with one niyyah? So you're fasting on a given day, but with the niyyah that the thawab for this is for multiple individuals, or does it have to be only for a single individual?
As far as fasting is concerned, it has to be for one individual. Means, of course, the person who's fasting would so we are talking about a case of, let's say somebody does a niyat of sunnat fast, then and wants to dedicate the sawab to somebody from the marhumeen, he gets the sawab and also the other marhum gets the sawab. But if they are doing the qadha for somebody else, that also has to be for one individual.
Thank you. Maulana, if shaitan is chained in this month, then how can his influence still allow us to commit sins in this blessed month? Is it shaitan or Iblis still influencing us, or is it our own nafs?
Remember, there is a concept in Islam, Junud al-Shayateen. Shaitan is not alone, he is an army. It is a shaitan who is chained, but his agents and his army is still there, including our own nafs, which is there. And so that's why we see that, automatically there is no situation where, Muslims, those who are fasting, become automatically infallible people in the month of Ramadan. No, because those agents of shaitan are still there. And so we have to be vigilant even in the state of fasting.
Thank you, Maulana. A question that's come in, that's a personal question for you, Sayyidina. Maulana, can you let us know when your Quran, the Quran translation that you're working on, will be released? And I can assure you, Maulana Sahib, that was not me asking the question. There actually is a questioner who was asked that question.
This is actually just sitting on my table here. I've been maximizing this time of lockdown, as much as, although I didn't realize that I'll, in a way, become more busy with all these, video messages, emails, different programs with different organizations around the world now. So Alhamdulillah, yes, the work is going on. This is in a way, this is basically 5 Jews of the setup already, which has been done. We even have already covered around 12 Jews of the Quran as far as the setup typesetting is concerned, of Arabic with English. That was the challenge actually from the technical point of view. And so we hope to finish this work, inshallah, by the end of Ramadan.
Thank you, Maulana. There have been 2 questions that have been asked with regards to sleeping in the month of Ramadan. We know that there are traditions from the Holy Prophet, for example, that says that sleeping in this month is ibadah. How important is sleep, or is there such a thing as sleeping too much in the month of Ramadan?
Well, it's not that Islam, there's any recommendation that during the state of fasting you should sleep. No, that statement, وَنَوْمُكُمْ فِيهَا عِبَادَةٌ, what it means is that even if you sleep during the state of fasting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will consider that act also as an ibadat, an act of worship, and you will be rewarded for it. As we say in Urdu, Khuda bahana ki talash mein, he's looking for an excuse to reward you. In the state of fasting, this will be one more excuse that Allah says, okay, you are sleeping in the state of fasting, your sleep is also ibadat. But there is nothing recommendation like, in the state of fasting, you should take a nap or go to sleep. Of course, if it's going to make it difficult for some individuals, especially towards the end of the day, then it will be better for them just to be just to maintain the spirit of fasting is to go to sleep.
Thank you, Maulana. What is the impact of throwing up during your fast? And does it matter if it happens early on in the day or late in the fast? And also, is there a kafara for this?
Vomiting or throwing up, if it is involuntarily, not done intentionally, whether it happens during the early part of the day or later on, it has no impact on the fasting. Your fast is still valid. However, if somebody intentionally does, throwing up, induces that, then it becomes batil. And if it was not done for a medical reason, then there will be, with qaza, also kafara will be applied. But if it is done involuntarily, then the fast is still valid. There is no problem.
Thank you, Maulana.
Everything in the list of things which invalidate the fast, the general ruling is that if any of these things are done intentionally, then they will break the fast.
Thank you, Sayyidina. When I pay my fidya or kafara funds for missed fasts through the Jamaat, or the ISIG of Toronto, can you tell us where it's used? And also, should fidya and kafara be used as a rule to feed masakeen?
When it comes to fidya and kafara, this has to be paid in kind. So when we talk about 750 grams per day, this is where we are talking about, paying in a staple food form to the needy and poor. So it's not something you would give in cash. As far as the Jamaat is concerned, I know we look at those funds and we try to use that in order to first look at the need locally, whether it's through our food bank or different programs that the community has on this issue of taking care of the needy families. But if there is an access to that, then we look at the possibility of sending it to other places.
Thank you. Can a lady learn the recitation of the Quran from a male teacher? Because sometimes it's difficult to find good qaris of the Quran amongst the ladies. Is it okay for a lady to learn from a male qari? Ayatollah Sistani's website does not say anything about this. So can I assume that it's okay?
Well, learning the recitation of the Quran can take different forms. You are talking about just simple learning of how to recite the Quran in a tartil form, simple form, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, So to have a male teacher, provided hijab is maintained, distance is maintained in this interaction, would be okay. I wouldn't say that is preferable, but that would be okay. But if you want to learn how to recite the Quran in a very melodious way, the way the qaris recite, that is problematic if it is done by a lady learning it from a male teacher.
Thank you, Maulana. I am a cancer patient. I get headaches and bouts of dizziness, but I feel like fasting because I feel guilty not fasting. Would I have to pay kafara if I don't fast?
The way this individual is describing the situation, I don't think this person would be has an obligation to fast. He or she would be exempted, and if it is an ongoing situation, then there is no qada. Definitely there is no kafara. The most I would say is that if it's a long-term illness, they should just pay fidya, which is 22.5 kilo of rice or flour for the whole month. And there is no need to feel guilty in any way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the passage of the ayat of Quran in Surah Baqarah, where fasting ends by saying that Allah looks for yusr for you. He wants things to be easy for you and not difficult.
Thank you. Maulana, you talked earlier about or recommended the recitation of nawafil prayers. There are two questions that have come in with regards to a breakdown of the 51 raka'at of nawafil prayers. Can you speak a little bit about the nawafil prayers, please?
Okay, basically you're looking at, if you look at the numbers, it's 2 rakat related to Fajr. Then there is 8 rakat. Now all these number of rakat, which means you recited 2 rakat each. So when we say 8 rakat, it means 4 namaz, 2 rakat each. So you have 2 rakat for Fajr, 8 for Zohar, 8 for Asr. Zohar and Asr is the one where you do it before the namaz, wajib namaz. Then you have for Maghrib, you have 2 rakat nafila, and then you can also do ghufayla in place of other 2. And then similarly after Isha, you have 2 rakat, but in a sitting form. And then you add that to the namaz al-shab, and that's where you get about 11 rakat, 2 rakat, and then 1 rakat, which is known as witr. And so this is where you get the number 51, including the wajib namaz, you get 51 rakat per day.
Thank you, Maulana. What are the best surahs from the Quran to recite in this month?
That's a tough question because it is the month of Ramadan, which is the month of Quran. I think to go with the tradition of trying to read the entire Quran from beginning to the end is a really good one. At least you are able to go through the Quran at least once. Special recommendation for the month of Ramadan, I can't recall. Of course, we have, Surah Yasin, which is known as the Qalb al-Quran, Surah Rahman, which is known as Urus al-Quran. So the first one is the heart of the Quran, or the soul of the Quran. The other one is known as the bride of the Quran. So all these surahs are important ones. So I don't recall any special preference for a surah during the month of Ramadan.
Thank you, Mulana. Is it allowed for us to eat in public if we are excused from fasting?
There are two sides to it. Technical point of view, there is no problem. If you have the excuse, you can eat, but you have to maintain the respect of the month of Ramadan even if you are exempted from fasting. And that's where the akhlaqi, the moral dimension comes in, that you should refrain from eating and drinking publicly, even though you have the excuse for that. There is a case of a companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He was a poet by the name of Najashi in Iraq at that time when Imam was in Kufa. And one day, he was a very talented poet, also very supportive of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Somehow, he got one of the soldiers of the army of Shaitan, misguided him. He was fasting it was Ramadan, and he ended up, going with that fellow, eating when it was haram, and also drinking intoxicant. And then he was caught publicly in a drunk situation. So Amir al-Mu'mineen, his officers put him in jail until he sobers up. And then next day, Amir al-Mu'mineen implemented the punishment. But then he added a number of lashes to that. And when this Najashi person turned around and said, I accept the first series, but what was this extra ones? He says that was for violating the hurmat of the month of Ramadan. You did something haram, which has its own punishment, but you did it in the month of Ramadan, during the daytime, where you violated the sanctity of the month of Ramadan. So let us keep this in mind that, a person might have an excuse to eat and drink in Ramadan, but respect the sanctity of that holy month.
Thank you. Maulana, are we allowed to watch and read fictional shows and movies in order to pass time while fasting?
It's not the best of things to do, but as long as the content is not haram, there's no prohibition to it.
Maulana, I may have intentionally broken a couple of fasts for reasons that were not really valid when I was younger. I know of 2 instances like this, but I don't have any idea how many years have gone by or how many others perhaps I may have broken like that. What do I have to do to make this up?
There are 2 ways of making up the fast which was not done or broken without a justified reason. One is to do qada, which is kind of a challenging thing because for one day that you missed in that way, you have to fast for 60 days. And 30 days of that should be continuous. And so that's for just one day. And so it's really going to be very difficult. The other alternative of that would be to pay the kafara. That also will hit you in your wallet. It's 45 kilo of rice or flour per day. So you have to calculate how many days you have in that list, and then you have to pay 45 kilo rice or flour per day to the poor and the needy.
Thank you,
And
Maulana.
even if you don't have the ability to pay that, right, in one go, you can do this gradually.
Thank you, Maulana. Another personal question for you. Maulana, what stories can you share of the month of Ramadan about your respected father? May Allah bless him.
I actually left my home when I was just 15 years old. And after that, I don't recall having spent the month of Ramadan with him. Even when I was in India for 2 Ramadan before I came to Canada, he had traveled once to UK and once to New York for Ramadan. So inshallah, next time if I think of something, I'll share that.
Thank you, Maulana. Can you use alcohol-free mouthwash?
Yes, that would not harm the fasting. Just make sure you do not swallow anything.
Maulana, if I don't know how many fasts I have missed, what do I do?
There is no standard, measure by saying that if you do the qaza so many fasts, then your obligation is over. I think you will have to think about your own situation and come up with a approximate number that you yourself would be satisfied with. And then either you do it, pay the kafara, or, make sure you write it down in your will and make some arrangement for it to be done by others on your behalf. Because there's a concept where people, do have namaz ijara and even fasting. They are hired to do that on behalf of marhumin. So this cannot be done in lifetime. You will have to put that in your will.
Maulana, if I have, this is a lady asking the question, if I have qada fasts missed due to my period, and those fasts have not been made up yet, do I have to fast plus pay fidya or fast plus pay kafara?
You will have to, there's no kafara there. There is only, you have to do qada, but if you were not able to do it within 1 year, then at least one fidya would apply there. So there's no kafara in that situation at all.
Thank you. I am a Canadian and I work in the US and I visit my family in Canada every weekend. What is the ruling for me for fasting? Also, what if I travel from my US residence to another state to visit my ailing mother? If you can talk a little bit about fasting for one who travels as frequently as this brother or sister does.
Well, there's some, elaborate rulings on this issue. What I would suggest is, I have a write-up on this known as Fasting in Ramadan, Simplified Guidelines. If you just, Google Fasting in Ramadan -Rizwi or Rizwi, you will be able to get that book, download it, and we have talked about it in page number 10. But basically, a simple answer there would be, if you are traveling in the month of Ramadan and going from your own hometown to some other place, which is not your hometown, a person can have one or more hometowns. So if you're going from one point to another, there might be a possibility of fasting. But if you're going to some other town where you don't, it might be your parents' home or your relatives, but that's not considered to be your home or your watan, then if you travel on that particular day before Zohar time, then your fast would be invalid. So you have to travel after Zohar time. Similarly, the day you are coming back to your town, you should reach there before Zohar time in order to, save that day of fasting. So if, let's say, somebody lives and works in Buffalo, wants to come and visit their parents or relatives in Toronto, if they travel after Zohar one day, let's say on Saturday after Zohar, that day their fast would be okay. Next day, if they leave Toronto and reach to Buffalo before Zohar time, Buffalo's city boundary, then that next day's fast also would be valid. But if, let's say, they left Buffalo on Friday after Zohar, reached Toronto, so Friday's fasting would be okay. Then they stayed on Saturday entire day. On that day, they cannot fast because they are traveling. Then on Sunday, they go back to Buffalo and reach there before Zohar. Their fasting of that Sunday would be fine.
Thank you, Maulana. Two questions, somewhat related. Is a simple nasal spray, like normal saline, which is not prescription, allowed to be used while fasting? Also, what about steam, especially during this COVID-19 era? And if you have initial symptoms or nasal congestion, can I use steam? And then another question, does smelling food break your fast? Maybe if you can just talk about this inhaling steam or aroma of food, whether that breaks your fast or not.
Nasal drops or nasal spray or even eye drops, they are okay. They don't break the fast. So looking at even steam should be okay in that way, as far as it's nasal, doesn't go through the mouth. Another thing would be smelling the food. No, there's no problem. For ladies, for example, or of course even men these days, who are cooking, preparing iftar, if they want to, just see whether the salt and other masala are, proper or not, just to test it on the tongue, doesn't break their fast. Or even to take let's say they are cooking meat, want to see whether it is already soft enough or not. So they chew on it just to see it's ready, cooked properly or not. That would not break the fast. They just want to make sure nothing goes, in the throat.
Maulana, what about eye drops while fasting?
Eye drops is okay. Nasal and eye drops wouldn't harm the fast.
Maulana, why is there a difference between the start of the month of Ramadan amongst various maraja in terms of a difference of opinion about how the moon is sighted?
So again, I would refer to this seminar which I had done in August of 2013. As I said, it's available on the main page of the islamicenter.org. There I talked about it. See, the issue is that there is no dispute. Everybody agrees that sighting of the crescent is the beginning of the month. How that happens? It is only in the last 30 years that we see that Muslim scientists, Shia and Sunni alike, have now been able to use astronomical data to give us an idea, how long would it take from the birth of the moon? How long should it age before it is sightable by naked eyes? even the points where the birth will take place on the globe. So it's every month it's a different scenario. And they also have come up with this issue where the possibility of sighting the crescent doesn't go in a straight line on the map on the globe. It actually takes an oval shape. Gradually, the visibility possibility, gradually expands. So the more you go towards the west, the range, would expand more. And so this is where we see that the ruling is there, that the beginning of the month will be with the sighting of the moon. It's only now that we are getting some scientific help on this issue, where it's possible, where it's not possible, where will it be sighted, where it will not be sighted. And so, for example, people like Ayatollah Khoei, that time, this information didn't exist. So he had, a different perspective about it, and he believed that once it is sighted in one location, it is good enough for every point to the west of it and to the east of it, as long as they share the night. Even maybe 5 minutes, that would be covering it. So almost the whole world would be covered by that. But that understanding now is not sustainable by the scientific data that we have about it. So people like Ayatollah Sistani has moved away from his teacher's perspective. So it's more about how you apply the Islamic ruling according to the modern, knowledge that you have about identifying the areas, the time, and the location. So some of the Maharaja are still going with the old view, like of Ayatollah Khoei, but some who are familiar with the scientific perspective on this issue have moved on to a different perspective.
Thank you, Maulana. It's almost 10:30, and so I want to try to wrap up this evening's program. We'll just try to tackle a few more questions, and if you have any questions that have yet to be answered, and I see that there's still quite a number that we've not been able to tackle, but in the interest of time, I don't think we'll be able to tackle all of them. Please feel free to reach out to Maulana Sahib. His email address is available on the Jamaat website if you have any pressing questions that we've not been able to address this evening. But we will try to get a few more questions answered. Maulana, is it okay to give blood or get a blood test while one is fasting? And also, is it okay to get injections like a B12 shot while one is fasting?
Injection is not a problem in the state of fasting. Even going for a blood test while you're fasting, there's no problem. So as far as the blood test is issue, or even injection would be fine. Wouldn't be a
problem. Thank you, Maulana. Can I pray half of qaza namaz instead of nafila? So pray 4 rakats of dhuhr nafila and then 4 rakats of qada salat after dhuhr.
Actually, I have talked about it in one of the majalis. I think this was on the related to the majlis of the 11th Imam, I think a few years ago. Well, actually, this was the suggestion I had, that you use the nafila time that you have as an opportunity to do the qaza salat. So even if you're doing, let's say, 8 rakat of Zuhr, instead of doing it as a sunnah 2 rakat, you can do it, 4 rakat for qaza of Zuhr, 4 for Asr. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that you are doing this, instead of nafila, you're doing it as qaza, there is nothing which prevents Allah to reward you for both. Even for namaz-e-shab, you can do the same thing.
Thank you, Maulana. I have 3 questions somewhat related about how old at what age does one have to stop fasting? There's one individual who says, my mother is 97 years old, mashallah, and insists on fasting. As her kids, we can see that she gets very weak, but she's able to do it. She does not have any qada in her life. Is she exempt from fasting? And then there are two other sort of related questions saying, is there a certain age in your life when you have to stop fasting? Does one stop fasting when one is over 70 years of age? So sort of three questions related to age and fasting.
There is no age as far as stopping of fasting. It all depends on the individual. If a person, because of old age, whether it's 70 or 80 or 90, if they cannot physically fast at all, then there is no qaza, no fidya, no kafara for them. Some might be in a situation in between. Because of the old age, they might be able to fast, but fast with difficulty. They have the option if they want to do that with difficulty. If they are not seriously harming themselves, that is fine. But even there, it means old age where you can fast with difficulty. You still have the option of not fasting and just paying fidya instead of that. But there is no fixed age. I think every person's case, it would be different from the other. So this lady who is already 97, you mentioned, if she's able to fast and there's no serious implications of that, mashallah, may Allah reward her immensely, inshallah.
Thank you. Mulana, do you have to pay fidya before or after Ramadan if you're unsure of how many fasts you can actually keep? So should you wait until the end of the month and then give your fidya based on the number of fasts you missed, or can you just give it at the beginning of the month?
You have the option. You can do it before, even though you might be fasting certain days. So that will be considered as a charity. But if you want to be very tactical, yes, then you wait till the end of Ramadan and see how many days you were not able to fast and give the fidya at that time.
Thank you. Maulana, can we recite Quran on a mobile, on your phone without wudu? And maybe I can add to that question. I guess when we do our a'mal on the nights of Qadr, we have sometimes a Quran app on our phone. Can we use the Quran, the phone instead of actually the mushaf for the a'mal of Layal al-Qadr?
When it comes to reciting the Quran from the mobile phone, the Quran, software or the apps that you have, there is no problem. But remember, it is your mobile phone. It is not Quran. So even the rules of taharat, for example, you might have the writing of the Quran, but you are not touching it. What you are touching is the screen, not actual writings, which is underneath it. And so the issue of, wudu condition wouldn't apply. And since it is not Quran, it is your mobile phone, that would not be a substitute to put it on the head in the amal for Shabbat. No, you need the Quran there.
Shukran, Sayyidina. I've heard that namaz-e-qaza umri can be recited on the last Friday of Ramadan, and that this can cover a lifetime of qada salat. Is this true?
There is no basis for it. There is no hadith. It is attributed wrongfully to Amir al-Mu'mineen. There is nothing like that. If there was such a shortcut that you do that one namaz on the last Friday, your namaz you missed for 70 years would be forgotten. Everybody would know that nuskha. There is no shortcut for qaza prayers. No.
Thank you, Sayyidina. You talked a little bit earlier about the importance of understanding the Quran and reading a translation. Is there a recommendation you have on an English tafsir of the Holy Quran that we can read or listen to?
Well, I think it depends on which kind of tafsir you want to read. I think the most common one would be there is a series which actually is known as the Light of the Holy Quran, I think. And that is, this series which is very much similar to the Tafsir Namuna. It's blue bounded everywhere. So that would be something very, it can be read by anyone. It is a basically public, it is for the lay audience. If you want to go into very technical, in-depth, you go to the translation of Al-Mizan, which is not complete, unfortunately.
Thank you, Maulana. So this will be the final question. And again, it's, Maulana, a personal question for you. Maulana, what will your daily Ramadan routine look like in terms of how will you start your day from the early morning in terms of your prayers and du'as leading up to iftar?
Well, I probably would be using the time more on the issue of, because instead of just reading the Quran, I would be rather working on the Quran, which is also what I'm reading there, and finalizing this translation that I'm doing. So that would be the main focus of my activities, other than when I have to do, you know, other assignments as far as, you know, the lectures, or when it comes to responding to people's questions online or through emails. But of course, after iftar, we will tune in with the program to at least, you know, be there for recitation of Dua Iftatah. It is a very powerful dua for the month of Ramadan, and this is something we should cherish and look at the translation especially.
Thank you, Maulana Sahib. As I mentioned earlier, you know, we still have a number of questions, unfortunately, that we have not been able to get to. I know there have been some duplicate questions that Maulana has already answered in some of his earlier answers. I do apologize if we were not able to get to your question. It is already 10:35, almost 10:40 p.m. We've been with Sayyid now for almost an hour and a half. And therefore, as I said earlier, if we have not been able to answer any of your pressing questions, Maulana Sahib's email address is available on the Jamaat website, www.jaffari.org. Please do visit the site and reach out to Maulana Sahib if you have any questions that we have not been able to get to this evening. So Mu'mineen, I thank you once again for your participation. I'm sure we all found the session with Sayyid to be extremely informative. Please do remember us in your du'as during these blessed days and continue to remain safe. And before we leave, just wanted to announce, some of you may or may not have heard, but an illustrious scholar, Ayatollah Ibrahim Amini, passed away in Qum today. And so can I request a Surah Fatiha for Ayatollah Ibrahim Amini, who is an author of numerous books, many of which have been translated into English, and a Surah Fatiha for him as well as all our marhameen. And with that, inshallah, we shall sign off. Al-Fatiha.